A violent explosion ripped through 5th and Madison, smoke pouring from a burning Lexus, and a white woman trapped inside, bleeding, fading fast. Within seconds, thousands crowded around phones raised, recording everything. Yet not a single person stepped forward, except Malik Carter, a young black nursing student running late for the exam that could change his family's future. He had no way of knowing that saving her life would pull him into a world of power, privilege, and danger that would rewrite his future forever. Before we dive into tonight's story, don't forget to subscribe and tell me, where are you watching from? The coffee had gone cold an hour ago. Malik Carter gripped the styrofoam cup anyway, his knuckles pale against the brown sleeve. 6:47 a.m. 13 minutes until the doors closed. 13 minutes until his one shot at the nursing license exam either happened or didn't. He'd been up since 3 a.m. reviewing notes he'd already memorized. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. "You got this," he whispered to himself. The words felt hollow. The testing center loomed 3 blocks ahead, a concrete building that looked more like a prison than a place where futures got decided. Malik walked faster. His sneakers, the only pair without holes, squeaked against the wet pavement. A woman brushed past him, phone pressed to her ear. "I don't care what the report says, I need those numbers by 9. Malik sidestepped her, kept moving. This exam had cost him everything to reach. 2 years of night shifts at the warehouse while studying. Aaliyah picking up extra hours at the diner, coming home with swollen feet and tips that barely covered groceries. His mother, Linda, rationing her oxygen tanks because the prescription refills weren't covered this month. Just get through those doors. That's all you have to do. 6:49 a.m. The light ahead turned red. Malik stopped at the crosswalk, bouncing on his toes. A crowd gathered around him. Commuters, students, people whose biggest worry was probably traffic. That's when he heard it. The screech of tires. Not the normal city sound of someone braking too hard, but something worse. Something final. Malik's head snapped left. The black Lexus sedan came through the intersection like it had forgotten how to stop. It clipped the corner of a delivery truck, spun wild, and slammed into a light pole 20 feet from where Malik stood. The impact was loud enough to make people scream. Then silence. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Malik's body moved before his brain caught up. He was already stepping off the curb when someone grabbed his arm. "Don't, man." A guy in a business suit? "Cops are coming. You don't want to get involved." Malik pulled free. The Lexus's front end was crushed like a soda can. Steam poured from under the hood. The driver's side airbag had deployed, white and deflating like a dying balloon. Behind the shattered windshield, Malik could see her. A woman, maybe 30, slumped against the steering wheel, blonde hair matted with blood. But that wasn't what made Malik's stomach drop. It was her hands, both of them pressed against her swollen belly. "Oh God, she's pregnant." "Someone call 911 inches, Malik shouted. The crowd around him had grown to maybe 30 people. Every single one of them had their phones out, recording. Not calling, recording. "Are you serious right now?" Malik's voice cracked. "Call 911. The teenager in a Supreme hoodie just stared at him, phone still pointed at the wreck. Malik looked at the woman again. Her lips were moving, but no sound came out. Her face had gone gray, the kind of gray Malik had seen before in the ER during his clinical rotations. The kind of gray that meant you were running out of time. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Reminder, nursing exam, 7:0 a.m. Final entry, 6:50 a.m. Malik's eyes shot to the testing center. 3 blocks. The doors were still open. He could see people filing in, clutching their own coffee cups and lucky pens. He could still make it. His thumb hovered over the phone. 1 call. He could tell Aaliyah he was going in. He could tell his mother her medical bills would finally get paid. He could tell himself that someone else would help this woman, that it wasn't his responsibility, that he'd worked too hard to throw it away for a stranger. The woman's head lolled to the side. Her eyes found his through the broken glass. They were blue, terrified, pleading, and Malik knew that if he walked away, she would die. Damn it! He grabbed the door handle, locked. "Does anyone have something to break the window?" The crowd just stared at him. A rock, a brick, anything. Nothing. Malik looked down at his hand, at the testing center admission ticket clutched between his fingers, the paper that represented 2 years of his life, the paper that was supposed to save his family. He looked back at the woman. 5 minutes might as well be 5 hours. Malik wrapped the ticket around his knuckles and punched through the passenger side window. The glass spiderwebbed, then gave. Pain shot up his arm, but he ignored it, reaching through to unlock the door. "What are you doing?" Someone from the crowd. "You're gonna get sued, man." Malik yanked the door open and dove inside. The smell hit him immediately, blood gasoline, and something sweet that made his stomach turn. The woman was convulsing now, her whole body rigid. Eclamptic seizure, late-stage preeclampsia. Malik's clinical training kicked in like muscle memory. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" He checked her pulse. Fast. Too fast. "My name is Malik. I'm a nursing student. I'm going to help you." Her eyes flickered, unfocused, a soft breath escaping her lips, more reflex than response. "No, no, no. Stay with me." Malik tilted her head gently, checking her airway. Clear, but her breathing was shallow. He needed to get her on her side before she aspirated. His phone buzzed again. 6:52 a.m. The testing center was closing its doors. Right now. He could see them swinging shut in his peripheral vision. Everything he'd worked for. Gone. Malik's hands started shaking again, but this time he forced them still. Okay, we're doing this." He reclined the seat as much as the crushed dashboard allowed and carefully rolled the woman onto her left side. The position would improve blood flow to the baby, reduce pressure on her vena cava. Left lateral tilt. He muttered more to himself than anyone. Elevate the legs if possible. He grabbed her purse from the floor, wedged it under her knees. Her convulsions started to ease. "That's it. That's good." Malik pressed 2 fingers to her carotid. Still racing, but rhythm was better. "You're going to be okay. Both of you." He pulled out his phone with his free hand and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? "I'm at the corner of 5th and Madison. Single vehicle collision. Female driver approximately 30 years old, 7 months pregnant, presenting with eclamptic seizure. Units are 2 minutes out. Stay on the line." The woman's eyes fluttered open, unfocused but open. A faint sound escaped her, barely more than a breath. Her hand twitched toward her belly. "Hey." Malik kept his voice soft. "Hey, you're okay. I'm right here. Don't try to move." A tear slid from the corner of her eye, her fingers clenching weakly. Sirens finally cut through the air. 2 EMTs jogged over, equipment in hand. The older one, a woman with gray streaks in her ponytail, took one look at Malik's positioning of the patient and nodded. "Good work. You medical nursing student." She raised an eyebrow. "Could have fooled me. This is textbook." The other EMT, younger and moving fast, was already setting up the IV line. "Mag sulfate. 10 grams over 20 minutes, Malik said automatically, then caught himself. "Sorry, don't apologize." The older EMT smiled. "You probably saved her life." They worked quickly professionally. Backboard C-collar vitals check. Malik stepped back to give them room, his hands finally starting to shake for real, now that the adrenaline was fading. As they loaded the woman into the ambulance, her hand slipped from the blanket, drifting blindly until it brushed against Malik's arm. For a moment, it seemed like she was reaching for something. Then her fingers pushed a small leather wallet into his palm. Inside, a corner of a white business card peeked out. Her lips barely moved, the faintest whisper escaping, fractured, trembling, but intentional. "Won't forget." Then the ambulance doors closed. Malik stood there, blood on his hands, glass in his hair, watching the lights disappear down 5th Avenue. Someone tapped his shoulder. "Dude!" It was the teenager from earlier, Supreme Hoodie Kid. "That was insane. You're all over TikTok already." Malik blinked. "What?" The kid showed him his phone. The video already had 50,000 views, comments flooding in. Malik's phone buzzed one last time. "Missed nursing license examination. Next available date, 18 months. He stared at the notification until the screen went black. Then he turned and walked away from the testing center, away from his one shot, away from the future he'd been building for 2 years. His feet carried him toward the subway, toward home, toward Aaliyah and his mother, and the stack of medical bills that just got 18 months harder to pay. But when Malik closed his eyes, all he could see was the woman's face, and her hands pressed against her belly dot, and he knew even with everything it cost him, he'd make the same choice again. The apartment smelled like overcooked rice and desperation. Malik stood outside the door, his shirt still stiff with dried blood. He could hear movement inside Aaliyah, humming softly the clink of dishes. She was happy. God, she was happy because she thought he'd passed. His hand shook as he turned the key. "Baby." Aaliyah appeared from the kitchen dish towel over her shoulder, smiling wider than he'd seen in months. "How'd it go? Tell me everything." She was already moving toward him, arms open for a hug. Then she saw the blood. Her smile died instantly. Malik, her voice went flat. What happened to your shirt? There was an accident. Where's your exam packet? Her eyes dropped to his empty hands, then back to his face. Malik, where's your confirmation number? Where's the paper they give you after the test? Aaliyah, listen. No. She stepped back. No, don't. Don't tell me. A woman was dying. She was pregnant and nobody was helping, and You didn't. The shout echoed off the walls. Malik flinched. Aaliyah's hands went to her head, fingers tangling in her hair. She turned away from him, then spun back, her face a mixture of disbelief and rage. Tell me you didn't miss that exam. She had maybe 3 minutes before. I don't care. Another shout, louder this time. I don't care about her. I don't care about some stranger. Malik, do you understand what you just did? She grabbed a pink slip from the kitchen table and shoved it at him. Eviction notice, 30 days. That came today. She threw it at his chest. Your mother's oxygen supplier called. We're behind 3 months. They're cutting off service next week. Baby. Don't baby me. Her voice cracked. I worked doubles for 6 months. 6 months of 16-hour shifts so you could study. My feet are so swollen I can't fit in my regular shoes. I smile at customers who grab my ass for tips because we need every dollar. Tears were streaming down her face now. And you just threw it away for someone you don't know. Someone who probably forgot about you 5 minutes after they loaded her into that ambulance. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? She wiped her eyes roughly. Make me understand, Malik. Make me understand how saving a stranger was worth destroying us. I couldn't just walk away. Yes, you could. Aaliyah slammed her hand on the table. Bills scattered. You could have kept walking. You could have called 911 and kept going. But you stopped. You always stop. And we can't afford for you to stop anymore. A weak cough came from the bedroom. Both of them froze. Aaliyah's anger drained into something worse, guilt. Your mom, she whispered. God, Malik, your mom heard all of that? Malik found Linda in bed, oxygen cannula in place, trying to sit up. Don't! He rushed over. Mom, stay down. What happened? Linda's voice was paper thin. I heard shouting. Malik told her. Everything. The Lexus, the crowd filming Emily's seizure, the choice. When he finished, Linda took his hand. You did the right thing. Mama, the exam. You did the right thing, she repeated, squeezing his fingers. I raised you to help people. That's who you are. From the doorway, Aaliyah made a sound, half laugh, half sob. That's who we can't afford for him to be. Not anymore. She walked away before either of them could respond. Malik sat with his mother until she fell asleep. Her breathing labored despite the oxygen. Then he went to the living room. Aaliyah was on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, staring at nothing. How long? Malik asked quietly. How long before we can retest? I already called. Her voice was hollow. 18 months. That's the earliest you can retake it. 18 months. The number hit like a physical blow. I'll pick up more shifts, Malik said, at the warehouse. Maybe find a second job. You already work 60 hours a week. Aaliyah didn't look at him. When exactly do you sleep? When do we see each other? When do you have time to study for the next exam? I'll figure it out. Will you? She finally turned to face him. Because I can't do this anymore, Malik. I can't keep working myself to death while you play hero for strangers. That's not fair. None of this is fair. Her voice rose again. It's not fair that we have to choose between your mother's medication and rent. It's not fair that one medical emergency could bankrupt us. It's not fair that you had to sacrifice everything to help someone who had 1,000 other people around her. She stood up, wrapping her arms around herself. I love you. God, Malik, I love you so much it physically hurts. But I don't know if love is enough anymore. And I'm scared. She bit her lip. I'm scared that one day I'm going to wake up and resent you for being too good, for caring too much, for choosing everyone else over us. I didn't choose. Yes, you did. She walked to the bedroom. You chose. And now we all have to live with it. The door closed softly behind her. Malik stood alone in the living room, surrounded by bills and eviction notices and the ruins of everything he'd been building. He wanted to punch something, to scream, to rewind time and make a different choice. But when he closed his eyes, all he could see was Emily's face, her terrified eyes, her hands pressed against her pregnant belly, and he knew, even with everything it cost, he'd do it again. God help me, I'd do it again. Malik couldn't sleep. He lay in bed next to Aaliyah, who'd turned her back to him, her breathing shallow and uneven. She wasn't asleep either. They were just two people pretending lying in the dark with an ocean between them. At 2 a.m., Malik gave up. He unlocked his phone without thinking. The first thing that filled his screen was the video, the same one the kid in the Supreme hoodie had shown him, except now it was at 2.3 million views in less than an hour. He swallowed hard. Under the video, there weren't dozens of comments the way there had been earlier. Just one pinned at the top, simple, clean, and carrying the weight of recognition. Her name is Emily Walker. Malik stared at the name. Emily Walker. A faint memory sparked the subtle pressure of her fingers pushing something into his hand right before the ambulance doors closed. The wallet. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled it out, the small leather case she'd shoved into his palm with the last bit of strength she had. Inside was a single business card. White. Minimal. Embossed letters. Emily Walker. Malik froze. He'd heard that name before. Not at the hospital. On the news. In headlines, Aaliyah would read aloud in disbelief during breakfast, shaking her head at the numbers. He typed the name into his phone's search bar. The very first result read Emily Walker, wife of billionaire Daniel Walker. Daniel Walker, tech billionaire, owner of half the skyline. And this woman, this stranger he'd pulled out of a crushed Lexus, was his wife. Malik swallowed hard, the realization hitting him like a cold wave. So what now? Malik, you pick up your phone and call her. Tell her you saved her life and ask for a favor. Ask a billionaire's wife to repay you for doing the right thing. The thought made his stomach twist. He imagined Aaliyah's face if he did something like that. He imagined his mother's disappointment. He pictured himself dialing the number on the card, voice cracking as he tried to sound confident. It was pathetic. He didn't save her because of this card. He didn't save her because of her last name. He didn't even know who she was. But the truth sat heavy in his chest. He had saved the wife of a billionaire, while he couldn't even afford his mother's next treatment. Malik closed his eyes, breathing through the knot in his throat. He looked at the business card one more time. Emily Walker, a name that suddenly carried weight, a name tied to the moment everything in his life had shifted. 3 weeks. That's how long Malik had been working double shifts at the warehouse, sleeping 4 hours a night and avoiding his phone. Aaliyah hadn't mentioned the accident since that night. They moved around each other in careful silence, her leaving for the diner before he woke up, him coming home after she'd gone to bed. The apartment felt smaller every day. It was a Tuesday when everything changed. Malik was hauling boxes in the warehouse when his supervisor called him over. "Carter, someone's here for you." "Who?" "Didn't say, but they're driving a car that costs more than this whole building." Malik's stomach dropped. He walked to the front office, work gloves still on, and stopped dead. Through the glass doors, he could see it, a silver Rolls-Royce Ghost parked in the middle of the warehouse lot, like a spaceship that had landed in the wrong dimension. Every worker in the building had stopped to stare. A man in a black suit stood beside the car, tall, mid-50s, with the kind of posture that said he'd been in the military. When he saw Malik, he nodded once. "Malik Carter." "That's me." "I'm James. I work for the Walker family." He held out a cream-colored envelope with gold trim. "Mrs. Walker asked me to deliver this personally." Malik took the envelope. His hands left dirty smudges on the paper. "She also asked me to give you these." James produced a bouquet of white lilies from the car. "I don't understand." "Mrs. Walker would like to meet with you today. 2 o'clock if you're available." James handed him a card with an address embossed in elegant script. "The car will wait if you need time to prepare." Malik looked at the envelope, at the flowers, at the Rolls-Royce that probably cost more than his mother's lifetime medical bills. "I'm working until 5. Mrs. Walker anticipated that. She's already spoken with your employer. You're excused for the rest of the day. Paid." "She did what?" James's expression didn't change. "The car is ready when you are, Mr. Carter." The Walker estate sat behind iron gates in a neighborhood Malik had only seen in movies. The driveway was longer than his street. Gardens stretched in every direction, perfectly maintained, probably by an army of landscapers. Fountains, stone pathways, trees that looked like they'd been positioned by an artist. Malik sat in the back of the Rolls-Royce, still in his warehouse clothes, clutching the envelope he hadn't opened. "I shouldn't be here," he said aloud. James glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "Why is that?" "Because people like me don't—" "This isn't—" Malik gestured vaguely at everything. "This is your world, not mine." Mrs. Walker would disagree. "Mrs. Walker doesn't know me. She knows what matters." James pulled up to the front entrance, a mansion that looked like it belonged on a postcard. She knows you saved her life when everyone else just filmed it." The words hit harder than Malik expected. James opened the door. Malik stepped out onto marble steps, feeling like an imposter. The front door opened before he could knock. Emily Walker stood there. She looked different than in the photos Malik had seen online. No evening gown, no makeup, just jeans and a soft blue sweater, her blonde hair in a loose ponytail. She looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from sleepless nights with a newborn, but her eyes were clear. And when she saw Malik, those eyes filled with tears. "Malik." She didn't wait for a response. She crossed the space between them in 3 quick steps and wrapped her arms around him. Malik froze. He was still filthy from work, probably smelled like sweat and diesel. And this woman, this billionaire's wife, was hugging him like he was family. "I'm sorry," Emily said, pulling back and laughing through her tears. "I'm sorry I've been waiting 3 weeks to do that, and She wiped her eyes. Thank you. Thank you for saving my life. Mrs. Walker." "Emily, please, just Emily." She smiled. "Come in, please." Inside the house was somehow more overwhelming than the outside. Malik followed Emily through rooms filled with art and furniture that looked like museum pieces. His boots squeaked on the hardwood floors. They ended up in a sunroom overlooking a garden that could have been featured in magazines. A man was waiting there, holding a baby. Malik Carter. The man stood adjusting the infant in his arms with practiced ease. "Daniel Walker." He extended his hand. Malik shook it, hyper-aware of the grease still under his fingernails. "This is Noah," Emily said softly, reaching for the baby. "He's 3 weeks old today." Noah. The baby Malik had felt kicking while Emily seized in that crushed car. "He's beautiful," Malik managed. "He's alive because of you." Emily's voice caught. "The doctor said I had maybe 5 minutes before my brain would have started bleeding. Noah would have gone into distress. We both would have." She couldn't finish. Daniel put his hand on her shoulder, squeezed gently. "We owe you everything," Daniel said, looking directly at Malik. "Please, sit." Malik sat in a chair that probably cost more than his monthly salary, trying to process this surreal moment. Emily settled across from him, Noah in her arms. Daniel sat beside her. "I need to be honest with you," Emily began. "When James told me he'd found you, that you'd agreed to come, I was terrified you'd refuse, that you'd think we were trying to, I don't know, turn your kindness into a transaction. Aren't you?" The words slipped out before Malik could stop them. Emily didn't flinch. "That's fair, and I understand why you'd think that. But no, this isn't about paying you off or making ourselves feel better about being rich." She leaned forward slightly, Noah shifting against her. "This is about the fact that 3 weeks ago I watched my entire life flash before my eyes. I felt my baby kicking and thought I'd never meet him. And in that moment, when I needed help, most only one person stopped. Emily, let me finish." Her voice was gentle but firm. "We've done research, Malik. I hope that doesn't feel invasive, but we needed to understand who you are, your academic records, your clinical rotations, your work history." Malik's stomach tightened. "You investigated me." "We did our homework," Daniel said, "and what we found was impressive. 3.8 GPA, top 10% of your nursing class, clinical evaluations that consistently rated you exceptional or outstanding, instructors who said you had the best bedside manner they'd seen in years." He pulled out a folder, thick, organized, official-looking. "We also found out you were supporting your mother through a chronic illness while working full-time and going to school, that your wife worked double shifts so you could study, that you'd sacrificed everything for 2 years to earn that nursing license." Malik's jaw clenched. "And then I threw it away." "No," Emily's voice was sharp. "You chose to save a life. There's a difference. Not to my wife, not to my family, which is why we want to help." Daniel opened the folder. "The Walker Foundation runs healthcare initiatives across the city. We need people who understand medicine, who connect with underserved communities, who have the kind of judgment you demonstrated that day." He slid a paper across to Malik. "We'd like to offer you a position as a program coordinator for our community clinic network. It's part-time, 20 hours a week, so you can finish your nursing program. The pay is fair." Malik looked at the number on the paper. His vision blurred slightly. It was more than he made in 3 months at the warehouse. "This is charity," he said, his voice hollow. "It's a job offer," Daniel corrected. "One you're qualified for. We need someone who understands clinical care, who can build relationships with patients, who can handle high-pressure situations. You've demonstrated all of that." "I have 6 months of clinical experience." and better instincts than most people with 10 years. Emily leaned forward again. Malik, do you know what the EMTs told me when they arrived? They said your assessment was so accurate, they didn't have to do any additional evaluation. You positioned me correctly to prevent aspiration. You elevated my legs to improve circulation. You gave them a complete medical picture in under 30 seconds. She smiled, her eyes still misty. You did all of that while your entire future was closing a door 3 blocks away. That's not just knowledge, that's character. But there's more, Daniel continued. We'll also provide a full scholarship for you to complete your nursing program. Tuition, books, fees, everything. And we'll cover your mother's medical expenses, treatment, medication, equipment, whatever she needs. The room tilted. Malik gripped the arms of the chair, trying to breathe. Why? The word came out strangled. Why would you do this? Emily and Daniel exchanged a look, the kind of wordless communication that comes from years together. Because when someone shows you who they are, Emily said quietly, you listen, and you showed us exactly who you are, someone who helps even when it costs you everything. Malik shook his head. I can't accept this. It's too much. I'll spend the rest of my life feeling like I owe you. You don't owe us anything. Emily's voice was fierce now. If anything, we owe you. You gave me the chance to meet my son, to hold him, to watch him grow up. Do you understand what that means? Malik's throat tightened. So no, this isn't charity, Emily said softly. This is us recognizing that good people still exist, and when we find one, we hold on. Malik looked down at the folder. The scholarship offer, the salary that would change everything overnight. He thought about Aaliyah crying over bills. He thought about his mother rationing oxygen. He thought about 18 months of barely scraping by. I need one condition, Malik said finally. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Name it. This is a real job. If I'm not doing it right, you fire me. No special treatment, no pity. I work for this. Deal. A slow smile spread across Emily's face. Deal. She extended her hand. Malik stood and shook it, feeling the weight of the moment. This was happening. This was real. Daniel was already pulling out his phone. I'll have HR send over the paperwork today. You can start whenever you're ready, and the scholarship office will contact you by the end of the week. I need to tell my wife, Malik said, his voice shaking slightly. She's going to think I've lost my mind. Bring her by, Emily said warmly. I'd love to meet her, and your mother if she's well enough. She'd like that. They talked for another hour. Daniel explained the foundation's work, the clinic locations, the programs, what Malik's day-to-day would look like. Emily asked about his mother's illness, about Aaliyah, about his plans for finishing nursing school. It felt less like a job interview and more like family. When James finally drove him home, Malik sat in the back of the Rolls-Royce, clutching the folder like it might disappear. The warehouse lot looked different when they pulled up, smaller, grimmer, like something from a past life. His co-workers were still staring. Malik didn't care. He had a phone call to make. His hands hovered over the screen for a moment, the weight of the entire day pressing into his bones. When he finally tapped her name, his thumb trembled. She answered on the second ring, sounding exhausted, like the diner noise behind her had been chewing on her all shift. Hey, I'm on break. What's up? Malik swallowed, feeling his heartbeat in the back of his throat. Are you sitting down? A beat of silence. He imagined her brow furrowing her hand, pausing mid-wipe of a countertop. Malik, what's wrong? Is it your mom? Mom's fine. Just can you sit? Another pause, softer this time, like she'd set something down and braced herself. I'm sitting. What happened? Malik took a breath, steadying himself. Emily Walker, the woman I saved, she found me. She sent a car to the warehouse today, a Rolls-Royce, what her voice cracked upward disbelief, threading through the exhaustion. I went to her house, met her and her husband, met the baby I helped save. Okay. He could hear confusion in her tone, not the angry kind, but the kind that begged for the next piece to make sense. Okay. They offered me a job, program coordinator for their foundation. 20 hours a week so I can finish school. What kind of job? Working with their community clinics, helping run their healthcare programs, and the pay, Malik told her. Silence. Not empty silence, breathing silence. Shocked silence. The kind that made Malik check the screen, convinced they'd lost connection. Aaliyah, that's not real. Her voice was small now, stripped raw. Malik, that can't be real. It is. And there's more. Full scholarship for my nursing program, everything covered, and they're paying for Mom's medical care. All of it. Another silence, this one longer, deeper. Then he heard it. The wobble. The inhale. And finally, crying. "Baby, I'm sorry." Her words tumbled out between sobs, messy, unfiltered, painfully human. "I'm so sorry for what I said. I was so scared and angry, and I made you feel like a failure when you did the most incredible thing. You were right to be scared. No." Her voice sharpened even through tears. "You did the right thing. The brave thing. And I couldn't see it because I was drowning." A shaky breath. "You're a good man, Malik. The best man I know. And I almost lost sight of that. You were trying to protect us. I was being selfish. You were being human." Malik kept his voice low, soft. "We were both just trying to survive. Are we really going to be okay?" Malik felt something loosen in his chest, a pressure he hadn't realized was crushing him. Yeah, he couldn't stop the small smile that rose. "We're going to be more than okay." The community clinic was smaller than Malik expected. Tucked between a laundromat and a bodega in South Midtown, the Walker Foundation Clinic looked like it had been carved out of a former pharmacy. The waiting room had maybe 15 chairs, all occupied. A single receptionist juggled phones and patient files behind bulletproof glass. Malik stood in the doorway, still not quite believing this was his job. "You must be Malik." He turned to find a short woman in scrubs, maybe 50, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense expression. "Dr. Patricia Chen. I run this circus." She extended her hand. "Emily's told me a lot about you. All good things, I hope. She said you saved her life while 1,000 people filmed it. That true?" "More or less." "Then we're going to get along just fine." Dr. Chen gestured for him to follow. "Come on, I'll show you around." The clinic was cramped but efficient. 3 exam rooms, a small procedure area, a medication dispensary. Everything was clean, organized, clearly well run despite the tight space. "We see about 60 patients a day," Dr. Chen explained, "mostly uninsured or underinsured. A lot of chronic conditions that should have been caught years ago but weren't. Diabetes, hypertension, prenatal care. Nothing glamorous, but it matters." "How many staff?" 3 doctors, 5 nurses, 2 MAs, and now you." She stopped in front of a tiny office. "This is yours." "It's not much." The office was barely bigger than a closet, a desk, a computer, a filing cabinet, but it had a window. Malik had never had an office before. "It's perfect," he said. Dr. Chen smiled. "Emily said you'd say that. She has good instincts about people. She talks about me. More than you'd think." Dr. Chen leaned against the doorframe. "Between you and me, Emily's been different since the accident, more present, more focused, like she remembered why this work matters." She paused. "Losing a child changes you. But meeting someone who reminds you that good people still exist, that changes you too." Malik didn't know what to say to that. "Anyway," Dr. Chen straightened up, "Emily wants to meet with you this afternoon. Said something about showing you the Foundation's other programs. I'll have Maria handle your orientation this morning." The morning passed in a blur of paperwork, password setups, and introductions. By noon, Malik's head was spinning with information about insurance codes, patient privacy laws, and supply ordering systems. And just like that, 6 months had passed. The memory of that afternoon still stayed with him, quiet, heavy, and shaping everything that came after. Those 6 months passed like a dream. Malik finished his nursing program with honors. The scholarship covered everything: tuition books, lab fees, even his certification exam. This time, when he walked into the testing center, he walked out with a license. His mother's health improved. Real medication, proper doses, regular doctor visits. Linda could breathe without struggling. She could walk to the kitchen without needing to rest. She could laugh without coughing. Aaliyah quit one of her jobs. They moved to a better apartment, 2 bedrooms, working heat windows that actually locked. The clinic became Malik's second home. He was good at the work, better than he'd expected. The patients trusted him. He had a way of explaining things that made sense, of listening, that made people feel heard. Dr. Chen pulled him aside one afternoon. "Patient satisfaction scores are up 20% since you started. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." "I just talked to them." "Exactly." She smiled. "Half of medicine is making people feel like someone gives a damn. You're a natural." Emily visited the clinic every week. Sometimes she'd observe, taking notes on how things operated. Sometimes she'd just chat with patients in the waiting room, asking about their lives, their families, their struggles. She never acted like the person funding the entire operation. One Thursday, she showed up with Noah in a carrier. "Mind if I hang out in your office for a bit? He's teething, and I need somewhere quiet." "Make yourself at home." Malik worked while Emily rocked Noah, humming softly. It felt surprisingly normal, like they'd been friends for years instead of months. "Can I ask you something?" Emily said after a while. "Sure. Do you ever regret it stopping that day?" Malik looked up from his computer. "Not once. Not even when things were bad, when you thought you'd lose everything. Especially not then." He leaned back in his chair. "I learned something about myself that day. I learned I'm the kind of person who stops. And I like being that person." Emily's eyes got misty. "Daniel and I talk about you sometimes, about how to raise Noah to be like you. I'm not that special. You keep saying that, but you're wrong." She adjusted Noah in her arms. "Most people are good when it's easy. You were good when it cost you everything. That's the definition of special." Before Malik could respond, his phone rang. "Daniel. Hey Daniel, what's up? Is Emily with you?" Daniel's voice was tense. "Yeah, she's here." "Why?" "Put me on speaker." Malik did. "Emily, you need to come home. Now." "What's wrong?" Emily stood up, suddenly alert. "Caleb Reed is back." The color drained from Emily's face. "He can't be. He's supposed to be in Boston." "He was in Boston. Now he's here. He showed up at the foundation office an hour ago asking questions about our emergency response contracts." "Did you talk to him?" "I had security escort him out, but Emily—" Daniel paused. "He was asking about Malik." Malik's stomach dropped. "Who's Caleb Reed?" Emily and Daniel exchanged a look through the phone. "Someone we thought was gone," Emily said quietly. "Someone who should have stayed gone." That evening, Emily and Daniel sat Malik down in the mansion's library. "Caleb Reed used to run emergency medical transport for the city," Daniel explained. "He had the contracts for 3 boroughs, made millions. Until we discovered he was cutting corners," Emily added, "using expired equipment, hiring unqualified drivers, falsifying maintenance records. We reported him," Daniel continued. "The city investigated, pulled his contracts. He lost everything. That was 2 years ago." "And now he's back," Malik said. "Now he's back." Daniel's jaw was tight. "And he blames us for ruining his life. Why would he ask about me?" "Because you're connected to us now." Emily looked worried. "And Reed is the kind of man who goes after people's vulnerabilities." "What does that mean?" "It means he'll look for ways to hurt us by hurting the people we care about." The words hung in the air. "I can handle myself," Malik said. "I know you can." Emily leaned forward. "But Reed is dangerous. He's not just angry. He's smart, and he has resources." "What do you want me to do?" "Be careful," Daniel said. "Watch for anything unusual. If anyone approaches you asking questions about us, don't engage. Call me immediately." "You think he'd come after me?" "I think he'd come after anyone he thinks would hurt us." Daniel's expression was grim. "And right now, that includes you." Malik drove home that night with a knot in his stomach. He'd been so focused on the good things, the job, the scholarship, his mother's health, that he hadn't considered the complications. People like Emily and Daniel had enemies, real enemies, the kind who didn't just get angry, they got even. And now, Malik was caught in the middle dot. Aaliyah was asleep when he got home. He didn't wake her. Instead, he sat in the dark living room, thinking. For 6 months, his life had been perfect. Too perfect, maybe. He should have known it couldn't last. The first sign came 3 days later. Malik was leaving the clinic when a man in a suit approached him. "Malik Carter." "Who's asking?" "My name's Jim Torres. I'm a journalist with the Metro Tribune." He held up a business card. "I'm doing a story on the Walker Foundation. Mind if I ask you a few questions?" Every alarm bell in Malik's head went off. "I don't talk to reporters." "It'll only take 5 minutes. I just want to get your perspective on." I said no. Malik kept walking. Torres followed. "Is it true you missed your nursing exam to save Emily Walker? That she gave you a job as a thank you?" Malik stopped. "Where did you hear that?" "I'm a reporter. I hear things." Torres pulled out a notepad. "Some people are saying the Walkers are buying loyalty, paying off the guy who saved Emily's life to make themselves look good. Any comment? Get away from me." "So you're not denying it?" Malik clenched his fists. "I'm not commenting. There's a difference." "Fair enough." Torres smiled a smile that made Malik's skin crawl. "But for the record, this story's running whether you talk to me or not. I'm giving you a chance to tell your side." "I don't have a side. Now leave me alone." Malik walked away, heart pounding. He called Daniel as soon as he got to his car. "A reporter just ambushed me. Jim Torres, Metro Tribune." "Damn it." Daniel sounded furious. "Don't talk to him. Don't engage at all." "I didn't. But he knew everything, Daniel. About the exam, the job, all of it. Reed. Daniel said the name like a curse. He's feeding stories to the press. Why? To discredit us. To make it look like we're buying people off, manipulating the narrative. Daniel sighed. I'll handle Torres. You just keep your head down. But keeping his head down was harder than it sounded. The article ran 2 days later. Savior or opportunist? The complicated story behind Malik Carter's viral rescue. It was a hit piece, carefully worded to avoid outright lies, but full of insinuations. Questions raised about the nature of Carter's relationship with the Walker family. Critics suggest the foundation may be using Carter's story for publicity. No comment from Carter, who now works for Walker Foundation. The comment section was worse. Dude saw a payday and took it rich. People always find ways to make themselves look good. Bet he staged the whole thing. Malik read it twice, feeling sick. Then his phone started ringing. News outlets, bloggers, people wanting his side of the story, wanting him to confirm or deny, wanting him to feed the drama. He didn't answer any of them, but the damage was done. At the clinic, patients started looking at him differently. Whispers in the waiting room, sidelong glances. One woman asked him point blank, "Did they really give you a job because you saved her? Or were you qualified?" "I'm qualified," Malik said, trying to keep his voice steady. "But they did give you the job because of the accident, right?" "They gave me the job because I'm good at it." The woman didn't look convinced. That night, Malik sat at his kitchen table with Aaliyah staring at his phone. "They're destroying me," he said. "Everything I worked for, everything I earned, they're making it look like I'm just some guy who got lucky." "You did get lucky," Aaliyah said gently, "but you also earned it. Both things can be true. Nobody's going to see it that way." "Then make them see it." She took his hand. "You're not doing anything wrong, Malik. You saved a woman's life. You earned your license. You're good at your job. None of that changes because some asshole wants to twist the story. What if it does change? What if people stop trusting me? What if the foundation decides I'm too much of a liability? Then we'll figure it out." Aaliyah squeezed his hand. "But I don't think that's going to happen. Emily and Daniel know who you are. They're not going to abandon you because of bad press." Malik wanted to believe that. But as more articles appeared, as more comments piled up, as more whispers followed him through the clinic, he started to wonder. Maybe Caleb Reed was right. Maybe people like Malik didn't belong in worlds like Emily's. Maybe the accident had been a mistake after all. The call came on a Wednesday. Malik was reviewing patient files when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Malik Carter. Speaking. "This is the State Nursing Board. We're calling about a complaint filed against your license." Malik's blood went cold. "What complaint?" "You've been accused of misrepresenting your qualifications and accepting employment under false pretenses. We need you to come in for a hearing." "That's insane. I didn't misrepresent anything." "The hearing is scheduled for 2 weeks from today. You'll receive formal notice in the mail. I suggest you bring legal representation." The line went dead. Malik sat there, phone in hand, feeling the walls close in. They weren't just coming after his reputation, they were coming after his license. Everything he'd worked for, everything he'd sacrificed, gone. The formal notice arrived 3 days later. Malik opened it with shaking hands while Aaliyah stood beside him, her face pale, bracing herself. The paper felt heavier than it should have. Complainant anonymous allegations, misrepresentation of qualifications, accepting employment based on personal relationship rather than merit, violation of professional conduct standards. Anonymous Aaliyah snatched the paper, her voice rising with disbelief. They can file anonymous complaints, apparently. Malik sank into a chair, feeling the weight of the word like a punch. "This is Reed. It has to be. Can they really take your license for this? If they believe I got the job under false pretenses? Yeah, they can." His phone rang. "Daniel. Malik, I just heard. I'm so sorry. Did you know they could do this? I knew Reed was vindictive, but this..." Daniel's voice sharpened like he was pacing. "This is a new low. He's not just coming after us anymore. He's trying to destroy you." "He's doing a pretty good job," Malik muttered hollow. "Listen to me. We're going to fight this. I'm getting you the best lawyer in the state. We'll prove you earned that position." "Did I, though?" The question slipped out before Malik could stop it. "Be honest, Daniel. Would you have hired me if I hadn't saved Emily's silence stretched across the line?" "That's not a fair question," Daniel said eventually, voice tight. "It's the only question that matters." Malik rubbed his eyes. "Reed's going to argue that I'm unqualified, that I only got the job because of the accident. And you know what? He's not completely wrong. You are qualified. You have your license. You have clinical experience. 6 months of clinical experience. Most program coordinators have years. Most program coordinators didn't save my wife's life. Daniel's tone turned firm again. Malik, don't let Reed get in your head. That's what he wants. But it was too late. Reed was already there. That evening, the second article dropped. Walker Foundation under fire. Did they buy silence? This one was worse. Meaner. Twisting the truth until it didn't look like truth anymore. The comments spiraled. I knew something was off about this story. Rich people are so fake, feel bad for the real nurses who lost jobs to this guy. Malik's barely used social media was flooded, half calling him a hero, half calling him a liar. He shut them all down, every account, but the damage was already there. The next morning, when Malik arrived at work, protesters lined the sidewalk outside the clinic. Not many, maybe 15 people, but enough to make his stomach twist. Their signs were handmade, angry. Walkers buy everything. Real nurses earn their jobs. Stop fake heroes. Don't engage. Dr. Chen murmured beside him. Just walk past them. Who are these people? Reed paid them. Has to be. She squeezed his shoulder. Come on, let's get inside. As they passed, voices rose. How much did they pay you, Carter? You're a fraud. Get a real job. Inside, the atmosphere was even worse. Conversation stopped when he walked by. Maria at reception avoided his eyes. Even Kevin, one of the kinder nurses, approached him awkwardly. Hey man, is it true about the complaint? Yeah. What are they saying you did that I lied to get this job? Kevin frowned. But you didn't write no. But I also wouldn't be here if I hadn't saved Emily. So, Malik lifted a shoulder. It's complicated. That's messed up. Kevin shook his head. For what it's worth, you're good at this job. The patients love you. Thanks, Malik said softly, but the reassurance felt small compared to the tide turning against him. By lunchtime, Malik sat alone in his office, staring blankly at the computer screen. The walls felt like they were closing in. A knock. Emily stepped inside. Can I come in? It's your clinic, he said without looking up. She closed the door, sat across from him. Daniel told me about the complaint. I'm furious. Join the club. Malik, did you see the protesters? He let out a dead little laugh. They're out there calling me a fraud, and maybe they're right. Don't say that. Why not? It's true, isn't it? He met her eyes. Tell me honestly, Emily, if I hadn't saved you, would I have this job? Probably not. The honesty hit harder than anger. But you know what else is true? Emily leaned closer. If you weren't good at this job, you wouldn't still have it. I don't give out pity positions. This clinic needs professionals. If you weren't qualified, I would have known on day one. Then why do I feel like a fraud? Because Reed makes people doubt themselves, Emily said, jaw tight. It's what he does. He can't prove you're unqualified, so he's trying to make you believe it. I don't know if I can fight this. Yes, you can. Emily rose resolve, sharpening her voice. And you're not fighting alone. Daniel and I are with you. The staff is with you. Your patients are with you. Are they? Malik gestured toward the door. Doesn't feel like it. Give them time. The truth will come out. But time was the one thing Malik didn't have. Aaliyah found him sitting in the dark. Malik, I can't do this anymore. She turned on the light, saw the redness in his eyes. Can't do what any of it. The job, the hearing, the feeling like everything's falling apart. He stood pacing. Maybe I should quit, drop everything, go back to the warehouse. You don't mean that. Don't I? His laugh was weak, jagged. I saved Emily because it was right, and now it's destroying me. The board wants my license. The press calls me a fraud. Even the clinic looks at me like I'm some charity case. So you're giving up. I'm tired, Aaliyah. His voice cracked. I'm so tired of fighting. She crossed to him, cupping his face, making him look at her. Listen to me. You are not a fraud. You earned your license. You're good at your job. Anyone who can't see that is an idiot. The nursing board can go to hell. Her eyes burned. You're going to that hearing. You're going to fight, because that's what we do. What if I lose, then we'll deal with it. But you don't lose by quitting before the fight starts. She kissed him hard. I didn't marry a quitter, Malik Carter. Don't become one now. He held her like she was the only steady thing left in his life, because she was. Then Malik's phone vibrated. Emily. He opened the message, pulse jumping. Found something. Come to my house tonight. Bring Aaliyah. Short. Urgent. Like she'd typed it the moment it happened. Malik replied, What did you find? The answer came instantly. Evidence. Finally. Malik exhaled just a fraction, but enough. Tonight might change everything. The Walker estate felt different that night. Darker. Heavier. James led Malik through the mansion to Daniel's private library, a room he'd never seen before. floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather furniture, and a massive desk covered in papers and laptops. Emily was already there, sitting in a wing-back chair, her arms wrapped around herself. She looked up when Malik entered, and he could see she'd been crying. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. Daniel closed the door behind them. The click of the lock was unnaturally loud in the silence. "What's going on?" Malik asked. Daniel walked to his desk and opened a laptop, turning it so Malik could see the screen. "For the past month, our legal team has been investigating Caleb Reed. We knew he blamed us for losing his contracts. What we didn't know was how deep his obsession went." He clicked a file. Bank records appeared. "Reed's been running a coordinated campaign against us for over a year. He paid Jim Torres, the reporter who wrote those articles about you, $50,000 to write hit pieces." Malik's stomach tightened. "He can do that." "Technically, no, legally, absolutely not. But proving it requires access to financial records most people can't get." Daniel smiled grimly. "We're not most people." He clicked to another file. More bank transfers highlighted in yellow. "Reed also paid 2 members of the nursing board, $25,000 each, funneled through a shell company." Daniel's voice hardened. "He bribed them to fast-track your complaint and recommend license suspension regardless of the evidence." "That's—" Malik couldn't finish. The room felt like it was spinning. "Illegal." "Yes." Daniel closed that file and opened another. But here's where it gets worse. A video appeared on screen. Security camera footage grainy and time-stamped. The date made Malik's blood run cold, the morning of Emily's accident. "This is from a traffic camera 3 blocks from the medical examiner's office," Daniel said, his voice carefully controlled. "Watch the black SUV in the bottom right corner." Malik leaned closer. The SUV was parked on the side of the road, engine running. As the timestamp advanced, Emily's Lexus drove past. The SUV immediately pulled out and followed. "That's Reed's vehicle," Daniel said quietly. Emily made a small sound, half gasp, half sob. She pressed her hand to her mouth. Daniel clicked forward through the footage. Camera after camera, street after street. The SUV stayed 3 cars behind Emily's Lexus. The final camera angle showed the intersection where the accident happened. Emily's car approaching, the SUV hanging back watching. Then Emily's Lexus swerved suddenly. Malik remembered she'd been crying, couldn't see clearly, and hit the pole. The SUV stayed for exactly 47 seconds. Long enough to see the airbag deploy, long enough to see Emily slumped over the wheel. Then it drove away. "He watched you crash," Malik whispered. "He just watched." Emily was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. Daniel moved to her side, his hand on her shoulder. "We can't prove he caused the accident," Daniel said, his jaw clenched so tight Malik could see the muscle jumping. "But he was stalking you, Emily. He'd been tracking you, and this footage shows the day of the accident. He couldn't finish." Emily stood abruptly, walking to the window, her arms wrapped tight around herself like she was holding herself together by force. "He knew," she said, her voice barely audible. "He knew I went there. He knew I was vulnerable, and he followed me anyway." "Why?" Malik asked. "What did he have to gain?" "Revenge," Daniel said simply. "We cost him his contracts, his reputation, his money. He wanted to hurt us back." "And if Emily had died in that accident?" His voice broke slightly. "If you hadn't stopped, Malik Reed would have gotten exactly what he wanted." The 3 of them stood in silence, the weight of that realization settling over them like a shroud. Malik thought about that morning, about the crowd filming, about Emily's terrified eyes, about how close it had all come to being exactly what Reed wanted. "What now?" he asked finally. Daniel turned back to the desk, clicking through more files with controlled fury. "Now we bury him." He pulled up a thick document. "We have his financial records showing the bribes. We have security footage showing him stalking Emily. We have phone records proving he contacted Torres and the nursing board members multiple times before their actions against you." He looked up at Malik. "But we need more. We need your 911 call from the accident. We need Emily's medical records proving she would have died without immediate intervention. We need everything that proves your actions that day were genuine emergency response, not some staged publicity stunt Reed's been trying to paint it as." "You have all of that?" Malik asked. "We have most of it. Margaret's been collecting evidence for weeks." Daniel pulled out another folder. "But we need you to consent to releasing your 911 call. It's your voice, your recording. We can't use it without permission." Malik thought about that call, about his voice shaking but certain rattling off medical terms while his entire future collapsed around him. "Use it," he said without hesitation. "Use whatever you need." Emily turned from the window, wiping her eyes. "Are you sure once this goes public, your life becomes an open book? Every detail of that day, every decision you made, it'll all be examined." "Good." Malik's voice was steady. "Let them examine it. I've got nothing to hide." Daniel smiled for the first time that evening. "Then we go to war." They worked until almost midnight finalizing documents and preparing statements. When James finally drove Malik home, he sat in the back seat, his mind reeling. Reed had stalked Emily for weeks, had watched her grieve, had followed her to the neighborhood where her daughter died, had waited for a moment of weakness. And when that moment came, when Emily crashed, Reed had just watched, hoping she'd die, hoping it would look like an accident, hoping to hurt Daniel Walker in the worst possible way. But Malik had stopped, and in doing so, he'd become Reed's new target. Aaliyah was waiting up when he got home. "How'd it go?" Malik told her everything. When he finished, Aaliyah was pale. "He tried to kill her. Malik, he actually tried to kill her." "We can't prove that. Not in court." Malik sat heavily on the couch. "But we can prove he stalked her, that he bribed officials, that he tried to destroy me as revenge for saving her." "Is that enough?" "Daniel thinks so. Margaret thinks so." Malik rubbed his face. "They're filing charges tomorrow. Federal charges. Reed's looking at serious prison time." "Good." Aaliyah's voice was hard. "He deserves worse." They sat in silence for a moment. "You know what the scariest part is?" Malik said finally. "If I hadn't stopped that day, if I'd kept walking to my exam, Emily would be dead. Reed would have gotten away with it, and I'd have my nursing license, but I'd be living with the knowledge that I'd let someone die." "You didn't let her die." "No, but thousands of other people did." Malik looked at his wife. 1,000 people walked past her, filmed her, and kept going. I was just one person who stopped." "You were the only person who stopped," Aaliyah corrected, "and that makes all the difference." That night, lying in bed, Malik thought about the thin line between justice and revenge. Reed had wanted revenge against the Walkers. He'd stalked Emily, bribed officials, tried to destroy Malik's career. Now they were taking him down. Was that justice, or was it just revenge dressed in legal language? Malik decided he didn't care. Some people deserved what was coming to them. And Caleb Reed was definitely one of them. The hearing room was packed, every seat filled. Reporters lined the back wall, cameras ready. Malik spotted faces from the viral video coverage journalists who'd written both supportive and scathing articles. Even a few people who looked like they'd just come to watch the spectacle. Margaret Chen sat beside him at the defense table, her expression calm and confident. Behind them, the entire Walker Foundation team, Daniel, Emily holding baby Noah, Dr. Patricia Chen, and the clinic staff. Aaliyah sat with Linda in the front row, her hand gripping his mother's tightly. And in the back corner, looking significantly less smug than before, sat Richard Vaughn, alone. Reed's empty chair beside him spoke volumes. By legal obligation, the board had to allow Reed's attorney to speak. Even though Reed himself was already in federal custody, Dr. Harrison gavelled the room to order. "This hearing is now in session. We're here to address the professional conduct complaint against Malik Carter, RN. I want to make clear that while criminal charges have been filed against the original complainant, this board has an obligation to examine any legitimate concerns raised about Mr. Carter's license and employment." He looked directly at Malik. "Mr. Carter, you've been accused of misrepresenting your qualifications and obtaining employment through inappropriate means. How do you respond?" Malik stood his legs steadier than he'd expected. "Not guilty, sir. I earned my license through proper channels. I was offered employment based on my qualifications and performance, and every day since I've worked to prove I deserve both." "Noted. Mr. Vaughn, you've requested the opportunity to present concerns on behalf of your client even in his absence. Proceed." Vaughn stood straightening his suit jacket with the same practiced precision as before. But something was different now. He moved like a man who knew he was losing, but had to finish the fight anyway. "Thank you, Dr. Harrison. While my client's legal troubles are unfortunate, they don't change the fundamental questions at the heart of this case." He pulled out a folder, though his movements lacked their earlier confidence. Mr. Carter had 6 months of clinical experience when he was hired for a position typically requiring years of expertise. He was offered this job within weeks of a highly publicized incident involving his employer's wife, and he received benefits scholarship medical coverage for family members' housing assistance that go far beyond typical employment packages. He looked at the board members. I'm not suggesting Mr. Carter is a bad person. I'm suggesting he was in the right place at the right time and that the Walker family's gratitude clouded their judgment about his actual qualifications. Margaret stood immediately. Your Honor, may I respond? You'll have your opportunity. Mr. Vaughn, do you have evidence to support these claims? I have the timeline, which speaks for itself. I have testimony from Dr. Chen that Mr. Carter was the least experienced coordinator she'd ever hired. And I have public perception. Millions of people saw that video and made the same connection I'm making. Public perception isn't evidence, Margaret cut in, but patterns are. Vaughn turned to face the gallery. And the pattern here is clear. Rich family grateful for rescue gives unqualified candidate a job he didn't earn. It happens all the time. This case just happened to go viral. Murmurs rippled through the room. Dr. Harrison gavelled for silence. Miss Chen, you may present your defense. Margaret stood, and the entire room seemed to lean forward. Thank you. I'll be brief because the evidence speaks louder than speculation. She walked to the presentation screen. The board has received Mr. Carter's complete academic record, 3.8 GPA, top 10% of his class, clinical evaluations that consistently rated him exceptional. But let's go beyond paper qualifications. She clicked her remote. The 911 call audio began to play. Malik's voice filled the room. Young, shaking slightly, but absolutely clear. Single vehicle collision at 5th and Madison. Female driver approximately 30 years old, 7 months pregnant, presenting with a clamptic seizure. She's post-ictal now, but her BP is likely 180 over 120 based on symptoms. She needs IV magnesium sulfate immediately, or she's going to have a cerebral hemorrhage. The baby's in distress. I can feel D cells through the abdominal wall. You need to move fast. The operator's voice. Sir, how do you know all this? I'm a nursing student. Final year clinical rotations. I know what I'm seeing. The recording stopped. The room was dead silent. That, Margaret said quietly, is not luck. That's not someone faking medical knowledge for cameras. That's a trained medical professional making accurate assessments under extreme pressure. She clicked to the next slide, the EMT report. The paramedics who arrived on scene documented that Mr. Carter's assessment was completely accurate. Mrs. Walker did have severe preeclampsia progressing to eclampsia. Her blood pressure was 186 over 118. The baby was showing signs of fetal distress, and Mr. Carter's positioning of the patient prevented aspiration that likely would have been fatal. Another click. Emily's medical records. The ER physician who treated Mrs. Walker stated in his report, and I quote, patient survival was directly attributable to immediate intervention by bystander with apparent medical training. Without this intervention, maternal and fetal mortality would have been highly probable. Margaret turned to face Vaughn. So when you say Mr. Carter was in the right place at the right time, you're absolutely correct. He was exactly where he needed to be with exactly the skills required to save 2 lives. That's not coincidence. That's competence. She clicked to another slide, the bribery evidence. Now, let's talk about why we're really here. Caleb Reed, the man who filed this complaint, is currently in federal custody, facing 8 felony charges, among them bribing 2 nursing board members to fast-track this complaint and recommend license suspension regardless of evidence. She displayed the bank records, the dates highlighted. These payments were made 2 days before Mr. Carter's complaint was filed. Reed didn't question Mr. Carter's qualifications out of professional concern. He did it as revenge against the Walker family, using Mr. Carter as a weapon. The board members were leaning forward, now studying the evidence. And finally, Margaret said, pulling out her last document, let's address the employment question. Yes, Mrs. Walker recommended Mr. Carter for an interview. But Patricia Chen made the hiring decision. Dr. Chen, would you please stand? Dr. Chen stood from the gallery, her expression serious. Dr. Chen, did anyone pressure you to hire Mr. Carter? No. Did the Walker Foundation ever threaten to withdraw funding if you didn't hire him? Absolutely not. And in the 18 months since you hired him, has Mr. Carter's performance justified your decision? Dr. Chen's expression softened slightly. He's the best coordinator I've ever supervised. Our patient satisfaction scores increased 20% after he joined. Our emergency response training program, which he designed, has prevented an estimated 60 cardiac deaths in underserved communities. And every single patient who meets him asks for him specifically. She looked directly at the board. I hire based on competence, not connections. Malik Carter is competent. Anyone who says otherwise hasn't worked with him. She sat back down. The room erupted in whispers. Doctor. Harrison gavelled for order, then looked at Vaughn. Do you have any witnesses to call? Vaughn stood slowly. He looked at his notes, then at the evidence displayed on the screen, then at Malik. No, Your Honor. I have no witnesses. Any additional evidence? No. Then the board will deliberate. They were gone for 37 minutes. Malik counted every one. He sat at the defense table, Margaret's hand on his shoulder, trying to breathe normally. Behind him, he could hear Aaliyah's quiet prayer, his mother's labored breathing, Emily's soft humming as she rocked Noah. The door opened. The board members filed back in their expressions unreadable. Dr. Harrison sat shuffled papers, then looked up. This has been an unusual case. The circumstances raised legitimate questions that this board had an obligation to examine. Malik's heart hammered. However, after reviewing all evidence presented, academic records, clinical evaluations, performance reviews, witness testimony, and the recording of Mr. Carter's emergency response, this board finds no evidence of professional misconduct. Relief started to flood through Malik, but Dr. Harrison wasn't done. More than that, we find that Mr. Carter represents exactly what the nursing profession should aspire to. He saw a medical emergency and responded with skill, knowledge, and compassion. He sacrificed personal advancement to save lives, and he has since demonstrated exceptional dedication to underserved communities. The chairman stood. Therefore, this board not only confirms Mr. Carter's license in good standing, but formally commends him for exemplary professional conduct. Mr. Carter, you are an asset to the nursing profession and a credit to this state. The gavel came down. This hearing is concluded. The room exploded. Aaliyah was out of her seat instantly, nearly knocking over the barrier to get to Malik. She crashed into him, sobbing her arms around his neck. You did it, she kept saying. Baby, you did it. Linda was crying, reaching for her son. Dr. Chen was pumping her fist. The clinic staff was cheering. Emily appeared beside them, tears streaming down her face, Noah in her arms. I told you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I told you we'd fight together. Daniel was right behind her, extending his hand to Malik. When Malik took it, Daniel pulled him into a hug instead. Welcome to the family, Daniel said quietly, because that's what you are now. Family. Margaret was gathering papers, smiling wider than Malik had ever seen. Congratulations, Mr. Carter. You just won. Reporters swarmed, questions flying, cameras flashing. Margaret held up her hand. Mr. Carter will make a brief statement, then he's done for the day. She stepped aside. Malik looked at the cameras, at the microphones, at all the people who'd watched his life become a spectacle for the past months. I'm grateful to the board for their fair examination of the evidence. I'm grateful to my legal team, my family, and the Walker Foundation for standing beside me. And I'm grateful I get to keep doing what I love, helping people. He paused. That's all I ever wanted to do, help people. And I'm glad I still can. Short, simple, honest. The reporters tried to ask more questions, but Margaret ushered them out. Outside, the November air was cold and crisp. Malik stood on the steps, Aaliyah on one side, his mother on the other, watching the sun break through the clouds. How do you feel? Aaliyah asked. Like I can breathe again. Emily and Daniel joined them. Noah bundled against the cold. Dinner tonight, Emily offered. Celebration. Our house. The whole clinic staff is invited. We'd love that, Aaliyah said. They stood there for a moment, this unlikely family born from tragedy and choice. You know what I keep thinking about, Malik said. That morning, the crowd filming. How easy it would have been to keep walking. But you didn't, Emily said softly. No, I didn't. Malik looked at Noah, sleeping peacefully in his mother's arms. And looking at him, knowing he's here because I stopped, that makes everything worth it. Even the hell Reed put you through, Daniel asked. Even that, Malik smiled. Because now he's in prison, I have my license and you have your son. That's not a bad trade. Emily reached over and squeezed his hand. Not bad at all. They walked to their cars together, making plans for dinner, for the future, for the life that had almost been destroyed, but had survived. And as Malik drove away, Aaliyah beside him and his mother in the back seat, he thought about how strange life was. 6 months ago, he'd been broke, desperate, and convinced he'd ruined everything. Today he had his license, his job, his family, and the knowledge that he'd done the right thing, the hard thing, the thing that cost him everything and gave him everything back. "What are you thinking about?" Aaliyah asked. That mom was right. Linda leaned forward from the back seat. About what, baby boy? That the world keeps spinning whether you're good or not, but you have to live with yourself either way. He looked at his wife, then at his mother in the rear-view mirror. And I can live with myself. Finally. They drove home through the city past the clinic where Malik worked, past the intersection where everything had changed toward the apartment that was finally starting to feel like a home. The storm had passed, the fight was won, and Malik Carter, nurse, son, husband, and the man who'd stopped when everyone else kept walking, was exactly where he belonged. 5 years later, the graduation ceremony was held in the Grand Auditorium at Metro General Hospital, the same hospital where Emily and Noah had been taken that day. Malik stood backstage in his cap and gown, fidgeting with his honor cords. Master's degree in public health, summa cum laude. The program director had already told him he'd scored the highest thesis defense in the program's history, but right now, all he could think about was not tripping on stage. "You're going to wear a hole in the floor," Aaliyah said, appearing beside him. She looked radiant in a blue dress, her hand resting on her rounded belly, 6 months pregnant with their first child. "I'm nervous." "You've testified in front of a nursing board, been interrogated by hostile lawyers, and designed emergency response programs that serve 50,000 people. But walking across the stage makes you nervous. When you put it that way, it sounds ridiculous." She kissed his cheek. "It is ridiculous. Now get out there. Mom and I will be in the 3rd row." The ceremony began. Names were called. Students crossed the stage, accepted diplomas, moved their tassels. Then, Malik Carter, Master of Public Health, Community Emergency Response Specialization. The applause was louder than for anyone else. Malik walked across the stage, shook hands with the dean, and accepted his diploma. As he turned to face the audience, he saw them. Aaliyah and Linda in the 3rd row, both crying. Dr. Chen giving him a standing ovation. The entire clinic staff on their feet. And in the back, Emily and Daniel with 7-year-old Noah, between them all three beaming. This was success. Not the diploma, though, that mattered. Not the honors, though those were nice. But the people. The family he'd built from a single choice on a sidewalk 5 years ago. After the ceremony, Daniel found him in the reception hall. "Congratulations, Dr. Carter." "I'm not a doctor. It's just a master's." "Close enough." Daniel smiled. "Got a minute? There's something I want to discuss." They stepped into a quiet corner away from the celebration. "We're expanding the Foundation's emergency response programs," Daniel began. "Doubling the number of clinics, adding mobile units, creating a certification program for community first responders. And we need someone to run it all." Malik's heart started beating faster. "We want you to be our Director of Community Emergency Response, full-time position leadership role, the kind of thing that usually requires 10 years of experience." Daniel paused. "But we don't want someone with 10 years of experience. We want you." "Daniel, before you say you're not ready, let me finish." Daniel pulled out his phone, showing Malik a graph. "These are maternal mortality rates in South Midtown over the past 5 years. See that drop? That's your prenatal emergency training program. That's 40% fewer mothers dying in childbirth because you taught people how to recognize warning signs." He swiped to another graph. "This is cardiac arrest survival rates in communities where we've implemented your CPR certification program, up 35%. That's dozens of lives saved because you designed a system that works." Daniel put his phone away and looked Malik in the eye. "You're not just qualified for this job. You're the only person who should have it. What do you say?" Malik thought about the scared nursing student who'd missed his exam 5 years ago, about the man who'd almost lost everything for doing the right thing, and about how far he'd come since then. "I say yes." Daniel's grin was immediate. He pulled Malik into a hug. "Welcome to the leadership team. Emily's going to be thrilled." 10 years after the accident, the intersection of 5th and Madison looked different now. The testing center was long gone, replaced by a coffee shop. The light pole Emily had hit had been replaced years ago. Even the buildings looked cleaner, brighter, the neighborhood slowly gentrifying in ways that made Malik uncomfortable. But he still came here, every year on the anniversary. Today, he wasn't alone. A film crew from the local news was setting up across the street, preparing to do a story on the Walker Foundation's 10th anniversary. The programs Malik had built now served over 200,000 people annually. Maternal mortality in underserved neighborhoods was down 40%. Emergency response training was mandatory in schools across 3 states. They'd changed the system, one choice at a time. Malik stood on the exact spot where he'd been standing that morning, running toward his exam, about to make the decision that would define his life. His phone buzzed, a text from Emily with a photo of Noah at his karate class, proudly showing off his new yellow belt. Malik smiled. That baby he'd helped save was now 10 years old, healthy and thriving. Movement caught his eye. Down the street, a young woman, maybe 22, wearing scrubs, stood frozen on the sidewalk. In front of her, an elderly man had collapsed near a bus stop. The woman's hand was in her pocket. Malik could see the edge of paper, an exam admission ticket. She looked at the man, then at the testing center 2 blocks away, then back at the man. The exact same choice Malik had faced 10 years ago. Malik started walking toward her, but he didn't need to intervene. The woman pulled out her phone, dialed 911, and knelt beside the elderly man. Her hands moved with trained precision, checking pulse airways, positioning him carefully while she spoke calmly to the operator. The exam ticket fluttered to the ground, forgotten. By the time Malik reached them, an ambulance was already approaching. The woman stayed with the man, holding his hand, keeping him calm. "You did good," Malik said quietly. She looked up, startled, then recognized him. Her eyes went wide. "You're Malik Carter. Oh my God, I watched your TED Talk in nursing school. What's your name?" "Sophia. Sophia Reyes." She glanced at the ambulance as it pulled up. I had my boards today. I was supposed to be there 10 minutes ago." Malik smiled. "I know the feeling." The paramedics took over, loading the elderly man onto a gurney. One of them nodded to Sophia. "Good work. Your positioning prevented aspiration. You probably saved his life." After they left, Sophia stood there staring at the exam ticket on the ground. "I failed," she said quietly. "I missed my exam." "You didn't fail." Malik picked up the ticket and handed it back to her. "You chose. That's different. But now I have to wait 18 months to retake it. 18 months of being the person who stops." Malik interrupted gently. "Of living with yourself, knowing you did the right thing. Trust me, that's worth more than any exam date." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "You missed your exam too, for Mrs. Walker." "I did. And now you're Director of Emergency Response for the Walker Foundation. Everyone knows your story." "The story isn't about me missing an exam. It's about what came after." Malik gestured to the intersection. "This is where I learned who I was. Not who I wanted to be or who I thought I should be. Who I actually was when it mattered." He looked at Sophia. "You just learned who you are. You're someone who stops. And the world needs more people like you. What do I do now?" "You call the testing board, reschedule your exam, and keep being exactly who you are." Malik pulled out a business card. "And you call me, because the Walker Foundation has a scholarship program for nurses who demonstrate exceptional character under pressure. I think you might qualify." Sophia took the card with shaking hands. "Are you serious?" "Completely. I went through the same thing you're going through now. Let me help." After Sophia left, promised to call tears of gratitude, Malik stood alone at the intersection. His phone rang. "Emily." "Hey, how's the anniversary visit going?" "Good. Better than good, actually." Malik smiled. "I think I just found our next scholarship recipient." "Yeah, tell me." Malik told her about Sophia, the collapsed man, the missed exam, the choice. Emily was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. 10 years ago, you saved my life. And now you're creating a whole generation of people who'll save others. That's not just legacy, Malik. That's immortality. I'm just trying to pay it forward. You're doing more than that. You're changing the culture, making it normal to stop to help to care." She paused. "Noah asked me yesterday why Uncle Malik is his hero. Want to know what I told him?" "What?" "That heroes aren't people who save the day once. They're people who keep saving it every single day in ways big and small. That's you, Malik. That's what you built." After they hung up, Malik took one last look at the intersection. 10 years ago, this spot had felt like the end of everything. Today it felt like the beginning of something that would outlive him. Because Sophia would graduate, she'd become a nurse. And one day, she'd face her own moment of choice. And she'd remember this day. And maybe she'd stop. And maybe she'd teach someone else to stop. And on, the legacy spreading like ripples in water. Malik walked back to his car where Aaliyah was waiting with their daughter, 5 years old, now asking a million questions about everything. "Daddy, why were you standing there so long?" "Just remembering something important, sweetie." "What?" Malik buckled her into her car seat, thinking about how to explain. "I was remembering the day I learned that doing the right thing is more important than doing the easy thing." "Is the right thing always hard?" "Sometimes, but it's always worth it." She seemed satisfied with that answer. As they drove away from the intersection past the coffee shop that used to be a testing center, past the neighborhood where everything had changed, Malik thought about the thin line between one choice and a lifetime of impact. He'd stopped on a sidewalk 10 years ago, and that choice had saved Emily and Noah, which led to the foundation job, which led to the programs, which led to Sophia, which would lead to whoever Sophia saved. An infinite chain of compassion starting from a single moment when someone chose to care. That night, lying in bed next to Aaliyah, Malik's phone buzzed one last time. A text from Sophia. "I called the testing board, rescheduled for next month, and I'm calling about the scholarship tomorrow. Thank you for giving me hope." Malik smiled and typed back, "You gave yourself hope. I just recognized it. See you soon." He put his phone down and closed his eyes. 10 years ago, he'd been terrified of what his choice would cost. Tonight, he finally understood what it had given him. Not just a job or a family or a legacy, but the certain knowledge that when the moment came when life asked him to choose between the easy path and the right one, he'd chosen right. And he'd keep choosing right every single day for the rest of his life. Because that's what it meant to be Malik Carter, the man who stopped the man who helped the man who taught others to do the same. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.